Welcome to the Modern Arizona podcast. Today's podcast is a little different. It's from one of our live events with the Modern Divorce Navigator, designed to make divorce less stressful and more manageable. If you enjoy the podcast, don't forget to subscribe. And if you're curious about the Navigator, check out the link in the description. We would love to have you join us. Now let's dive back into the episode. Hello, welcome to the Modern Divorce Navigator live series. Today I'm joined by Christie Carter, owner of Angels Monitoring AZ, which is a supervising agency that is national, right?
Yeah, it is. We're in, I believe, 11 states right now. So it initiated in California.
Got
Uh,
it. Well, Christie, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about Angels Monitoring, what it does, and how you got to be the owner of an agency here.
So Angels Monitoring provides supervised monitoring and therapeutic supervised monitoring services, typically court ordered. They can be agreed upon. There's also preventative supervised monitoring services that we're providing now. We found a need for. If there's an inclination that there are some issues and maybe in order, some parents are wanting our services just for that documentation there too. And then safe exchanges. So between parents, which so about 2.5 years ago, we opened up in Arizona and I'm the program coordinator here. We started as myself as an individual monitor here and have grown 15 plus now monitors throughout Maricopa County, and we serve Pinal too. We also have a monitor now in Yuma who had no supervision services at all. So they'd requested us out there. And Flagstaff, we have a monitor. Prescott is wanting services up there, and the courts in Tucson really have a big need too. So we are working on going statewide because the services are highly needed.
They are. It's such an important piece of family law when you've got complex custody situations. How did you get interested in this or involved in this?
Initially, I do have a degree in social work from University of Washington, and I wasn't in the field at the moment upon inception of our agency here, but I do have a close friend who actually started the services about 10 years ago in California. She was going to law school at Pepperdine actually and was doing this individually, seeing what a huge need there was, learned that there are no standards across the country in most states for it. And considering the gravity of the situations and the high conflict situations that we find ourselves typically ordered in and our services needed in, that's a little bit shocking. So California has House Rules 5.20. Those are the highest standards in the country. And that's where Angels Monitoring was initiated. And we've adopted those. Any Angels Monitoring agency that starts throughout another state or area, those are kind of the baseline standards. Which are great.
Helpful.
Because there's some accountability and standards. Otherwise, the courts do often order or encourage family or friend supervision, which
They do.
in many cases, if that works out, that's great. There are a number of reasons why professional services are more appropriate, though. And so
Definitely.
so when those are ordered, knowing what you're getting and that there's standards and accountability that come with are really important. So I've personally, through family and friends, seen these services provided, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. They, with no standards, people are providing these sort of just at their own will. There's a lot of ethical concerns and professionalism that are really important to go along with these services. So that's what we prioritize in our services, that people know what they can expect. We have those high standards. We really want to come from a non-biased professional perspective, putting the safety and objectivity of the visits first.
You mentioned therapeutic supervision. I think you said, well, and you're not using supervision, right? You're using monitoring.
Supervised monitoring.
All right, so supervised monitoring and therapeutic monitoring. In the family law world, we would just call this supervised parenting time. But can you explain the difference between the therapeutic monitoring and the general non-therapeutic monitoring?
Yeah. So, and the terminology therapeutic monitoring is it gives a little bit of a misunderstanding to the service as well, because it's not therapy. So I think it's easiest to start with what supervised monitoring is. Supervised parenting time is whether it's court ordered or agreed upon.
Hmm.
We provide a trained and experienced monitor, and they're going to start with a safe exchange. All of our exchanges are no contact, so it'll be a safe, no contact exchange. The monitored parent will be typically inside the location where the visit's going to occur, and the monitor will meet the non-monitored parent outside, and there's a 15-minute time gap.
Okay. So if dad has supervised parenting time, he meets you wherever you all are doing this supervised parenting time. And we can talk about different places that might happen. And
Mhm.
then he's supposed to be there at 3 and mom's supposed to come drop off at 3:15. You go
Yeah.
out, meet mom, bring the
Yes. Yeah. And we meet mom. The monitor will meet mom. They'll
Mhm.
ensure with a notification when dad arrives and is inside that he's there and ready. We'll do the exchange with mom. Mom will drive and leave the premises. And then the child or children will be brought in and the visit will begin. At
Okay.
that
And
point,
you offer just the exchange service. So if people don't need supervised parenting time, but they just can't, there's no school that day. And
mm,
so they have to do an exchange, and exchanges are a big problem.
yeah.
This is the service that you offer?
Yeah, we do offer that because typically, safe exchange locations at police stations or fire stations, they're more for exchanging of items or selling things. They're not made for this service. So there are incidences every year that occur
Hmm.
there. So particularly the time gap and having a monitor there to document, have accountability and prevent any issues, it makes the situation a lot safer.
Yeah. So where would you typically recommend people do exchanges?
I mean, if they're not through us,
Hmm.
schools obviously are an excellent option. Someone's dropping the child off one day and picking them up another day. Gyms are actually really effective if there's childcare there and there's something
That's a
that can
great
be worked
idea.
out. So there are a number of, if you get creative, there's a few options that can work well. Of course, keeping the conflict and the issues of a divorce or custody battle, sort of all of that out of those places enables you to use them safely, right?
Yeah. And when you do the safe exchanges, where do you do that?
It varies. So a lot of people will typically have a location between their homes where they'll want to do it. So we can do it anywhere from a McDonald's, to a park, to a police station, different areas. Typically, we want to make sure that there is security footage wherever they are at, but the parents are never at the same location at the same time anyway. The
Hmm.
first parent will drop the children off with the monitor. They will leave immediately. The monitor will notify the other parent when it's time. Usually it's about a 10 to 15-minute time difference. And if there are concerns or policies broken, that exchange is done. There's very,
Okay.
very strong boundaries set around safety for this. There's no reason for any of our policies to be broken. And it's a concern if they are.
Okay, so can you explain some examples of when and how that would happen? How a boundary would be broken and then a visit would be ended? How might that happen?
In a visit or an exchange. I mean,
Either
typically
way.
either way.
Yeah,
So,
either way.
um, for example, recently there was a court order where um, the monitored parent's boyfriend was not allowed to be present. She was dropped off at the exchange location. She was ready to go. The dad showed up with the children. This person's vehicle was noticed. The monitor went to check and confirm who it was. He apparently was dropping something off for her. Leave immediately or this is done. If we see that person again, he did. He complied. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just doing this. Mom learned. It's documented. It's not going to look good. He left, so there was no concern at that point. If he was seen again, visit over. Any future visit, it was very clearly stated, like, there's no reason for this. It's in the order that he can't be present. It's on you if this occurs again and the visit won't continue.
And one of the things I really like about your services is there is a documentation of what happens at each supervised visit. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I just to add on to what we were saying, we very rarely actually have incidents occur where a visit needs to be ended because our intake process is so thorough.
Well, I think one of the reasons people behave themselves is because there is a record for
Oh,
every single supervised parenting time. And we will need to circle back to the difference between therapeutic and non-therapeutic,
Yes.
but what is the documentation like that people can count on when they use your agency?
Yeah. So we have a standardized documentation visit report for every visit, and the documentation goes from the exchange to the end exchange. So
Mhm.
there can be some behavior that's not completely appropriate from sometimes the non-monitored parent at the exchange. So typically that's not even, we document when they arrive, that the child is exchanged, and the time that the visit begins. It's very short, it's very standard. If there are any issues or concerns, bad behavior, disrespect, strange things said to the child that are kind of
Mhm.
instilling fear, anything like that, we'll objectively document. And then from that point of that exchange, if a child is maybe hesitant to get out of the vehicle, if the parent's encouraging that, how all of that works.
Okay.
At that point, once the exchange has occurred, the monitor will walk the child in. We document the time that the visit starts when the child meets with the parent. We'll document how that exchange starts. Is the child smiling? Are things, are words said? How is the parent responding and reacting? How is the child reacting and responding to the parent? All objectively. We go through the visit activities, through the visit, what they're doing. Again, the responses, the reactions, the bids for attention, are those handled? We're not saying are they handled appropriately necessarily, or judging the parenting time and the parenting skills. As long as it's safe, we're documenting what it is and how they're doing it so that the courts know objectively and can determine from there. We're not there to
Okay.
judge. We're there to make sure it's a safe and hopefully positive visit. And if
Okay.
there are any issues or concerns given policies being broken of ours, or which promote a safe and positive visit, or any safety concerns, there's going to be intervention from the monitor, which will be documented, and the response from the parent and how things carry on. Or if it's deemed necessary that it's not appropriate or safe to continue the visit, there will be an intervention there, and the visit will be ended, terminated early.
Okay. Can you give some examples of what that looks like practically? Because people aren't going to understand
Yeah.
your language.
So it is very rare for a visit termination. We just had a visit end early last week. However, it was actually the parent's call.
Mhm.
He got frustrated about his, I think it was grandparents not being approved for a visit, but being there. There's a policy, unless the court order states it. No one can be present on a visit aside from the parent, the monitor, and the child or children. Obviously, in public places, other people are in public places, but no one proactively on the visit, right? So these grandparents were there. They
Mhm.
weren't on the approved list. So
Mhm.
there's a few things that could happen. We could move the visit and leave the grandparents. The grandparents could choose to leave. Either way, that needs to happen. And so with this visit being intervened upon,
Mhm.
so that only the individuals there who are allowed to be there were, the father got emotional and needed to take a minute. He decided he wanted to go to the grocery store. This may have been his way of de-escalating, but we're not babysitters. He can't go to the grocery store and come back and meet the monitor with the kids again. So he took a minute and the monitor explained options and decided to end the visit early.
Got it.
Which in this case, if that's what needs to happen, then that's the most positive way for things to progress forward. And
Mhm.
so that's done. That's clearly documented for the courts. Hopefully, we don't know whether I think he's taking anger management and has different court ordered stipulations to work on the concerns for why he's on monitoring, right? But we are at 100% okay if a visit needs to end for a reason, parent escalating maybe, and us not being comfortable with it at that point, or a parent choosing on their own. Don't know that I can handle this right now. Don't think it's the best, you know, healthiest way to move forward on this visit. Then by all means, we will support that.
What if a parent decides to leave with a child? Like, how would you actually stop them?
So we do document a number of items at intake. We document what everyone is wearing and their descriptions at every visit.
Smart.
Also, if there is a huge concern with that, often the court order will put that it needs to be in a secured location. And we
Mhm.
have two options for that here in Phoenix.
Mhm. Mhm.
We also have all of their license, their driver's information, everything like that on file. We have not ever had that happen. No, knock on wood. Anything can happen in any situation. And just we have training that handles procedures and policies if anything like that were to happen. And
Sure.
obviously, if there were a concern, 911 and authorities right
Yeah.
away, what they're wearing, what the vehicle is,
Yeah.
monitors would do everything physically they could, possibly also to prevent that or to de-escalate a situation. If a
Sure.
situation were to get to that point, I think it would be recognized a little bit earlier,
Mhm. Mhm.
de-escalated or intervened upon.
Mhm. What type of training do monitors receive?
So we have a 24-hour training. De-escalation and low conflict is training is within that. We have report writing in that mandated reporting is in that. We have actual
Mhm.
bias training and
Mm.
testing because
Mhm.
it's so important to be objective in this. It's real easy, and there are a lot of issues with the services not being biased and objective, and our job
That
isn't
is one of parents' biggest concerns, should I use this agency? Are they pro mom or pro dad? Like, I get these questions all the time.
I believe it. Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen people come to us with issues with that. I've seen with family and friends cases. This can help alleviate conflict and concern, this service, I think, with parents and families. It can also impede on the conflict and really create
Supervised
her.
can.
Yeah, if the monitors aren't unbiased and ethical and professional and
Mhm.
staying in their lane, there's boundaries
Mhm.
around this service. We are not
Mhm.
we're one stipulation in that court order. And if you're
Mhm.
going outside of it, you're already outside of the boundaries of the position and impacting things in ways that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
We're not judges, not that's one way that we prevent that really is because we're an agency, the case management and all of the back and forth and hearing both sides and everything we do in the intake is between the supervisors. And we will get a little bit of venting from each parent. And we hear one side, we hear the other side, we see the allegations, we have some of the evidence. Often there's a middle ground there somewhere, but
Right.
we want to take it all
Usually.
account, right? But the monitors stay out of that. The monitors stay out of one of the parents as being difficult with scheduling. We try to keep all of that out of that equation. So the monitors are trained to simply show up, maintain a safe exchange, maintain a safe and positive visit, and document it appropriately. On an
Perfect.
ideal visit, the monitor isn't doing anything but documenting.
Mhm.
Right?
Okay.
They should be involved. If interventions are there, then there's some things that need to be looked at.
Okay. So that is the supervised monitoring. How is the therapeutic monitoring different?
So supervised monitoring, like I said, is the exchange, the objective documentation. Therapeutic just adds a level of intervention. We're
Mhm.
only intervening on a policy being broken or safety in supervised. We can also guide and educate if it's therapeutic monitoring. The monitor's going to have higher training and more experience. We have everything from people completing their masters in social work or psychology, people who have completed it, and licensed providers. So there's a range of options with that experience, but it's not therapy, which a lot of calls we get, they want a licensed therapist, and we can provide that, but it comes at a higher cost, right? So, which is in the orders, we've seen two, I think, orders in the past year where a licensed provider was required. And we certainly have that, but we're not doing therapy. We
Right.
are only interfering one if it's necessary. If there's an incident that occurs and maybe the parent and child haven't seen each other in 3 years and it's a reunification process
Mhm.
and there's some tensions and
Mhm.
conversations need to be had that may brush on breaking the policies of regular supervised visitation or maybe more intense. The monitor can, with the higher levels of experience, can help guide that in the sense of keeping it low enough conflict to where some words can be had and then things can move on slowly and like in a more positive way. Or if it's too intense, they can redirect the activities and suggest activities that are more appropriate. Discuss with the parents, discuss with the non-monitored parent, and let them know what's going on. We always encourage, if possible, therapy outside of this process, particularly in therapeutic supervision, but really in all of it. It's a huge change for the child and parent.
So, is it parent education? Are you teaching parents how to care for their children?
That comes in too. It just, yeah, it's a variety and case by case on how it's applied. So guidance or education, guidance on activities and usually and we get a lot of it with parents who haven't been involved in children when they're infants or toddlers. They haven't been in their child's life. Maybe the mom typically has raised them and dad wants to be involved but has never been around a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, so that's a really ideal place where the therapeutic is needed. And maybe they've never even changed a diaper. They
Yeah.
need to know how to do that and learn that. And that's okay. But this provides them with the support to do that.
Sure.
Maybe they don't know when the baby's crying. Is it hungry? Is it tired? What's going on here? That monitor can educate them on all the options and what sort of interventions the parent can take with the child to care for them.
Yeah. I definitely could see that in the case where, you've got unmarried parents, you've got a young baby, and mom is just scared to have dad have parenting time, which is
Understandably.
understandable.
Yeah, right.
Understandable. And dad may agree at that point, fine, all three monitored sessions so that you can see objectively it's not my mom saying that I actually will pick up the baby when they're crying.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because it's interesting. Some parents come at it, I don't need this service,
Right.
it's fair. And we just encourage them, you've been ordered this service, let's make the
Hmm.
best out of it. The only
Hmm.
way out of it is through it.
Hmm.
And some parents come to us with, I do need help. Like, and I want to do this the best. And I love it when they have that attitude because we have fantastic providers. It's like, take advantage of them. They're
Hmm.
scared to ask a question as if that'll make them look bad.
Hmm.
I mean, I can only see that reflecting well if you're proactive and wanting to get the most of these services. We have amazing providers that will help you and your child and your family move forward. Take advantage of it. Because generally, with the therapeutic, we can do parent coaching too, but with the therapeutic, which enables even more education, with therapeutic monitoring, typically the monitors are only supposed to intervene if they see a reason to, if they see somewhere where there's an opportunity to educate. Ours are really good at seeing that and looking at the intake and understanding the other parent's concerns so they can hone in. But if there's a therapeutic visit and all is going okay and there's no reason to intervene or educate, we're not seeing issues with boundaries or discipline or, basics of caring for a child, then we document that visit almost like it's really similar to a regular supervised visit.
Sure.
There may not be interventions in our documentation around that.
What are the costs for the services?
So they vary. The supervised visitation starts at 65 an hour. There's a 2-hour minimum. If there is a commute for the monitor, over 45 minutes, then there's some charge for transportation. The therapeutic is at 100 and same thing with the commute. And if it's a licensed therapeutic monitor, they're 150.
Okay.
So yeah, so
And
there's
most often, do you see this cost split between parents or is that all over the place?
typically not. Typically, it falls on the monitored parent. Sometimes we'll see an 80-20 or 30 or 70-30 split, but typically it's the monitored or typically it's 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Much more often 100% on the monitored parent.
Got it.
So,
And how long do you see people typically use supervision before they go to non-supervised parenting time?
so that's interesting because it varies. We
Hmm.
sometimes see people on it for a period of time, go off of it, and then come back on.
Hmm.
See, occasionally we see like a step off program
Hmm.
where it's ordered with maybe 4 weekly visits of this length and then to the next, like it'll step off. Sometimes even some unsupervised, while some are supervised still, but most common they're put on it and there is no limit. I think it's until the next hearing and until they've covered other stipulations that the court's ordered and they bring evidence and they get the reports to show. And then the judge looks at it, seems everything as a whole and determines whether that needs to continue or not. We know the courts move slowly. So that is one thing. We do set expectations. Everyone's different. But I would say 3 or 4 months sometimes we see all the way very likely a year or more. We also see it typically takes longer than anyone expects.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll also see we have some people who have been on since we've been providing services, and maybe they can't stay sober for the stipulated 5 months that are needed,
Right.
or their mental health, it's just not stable and things continue to occur. And so people can't age out of it, literally be in the services until their kids,
Wow. Wow. I hadn't thought about like teenagers having supervised time. Does that happen often?
Yeah, it is often more challenging when it's a teenager, especially initiating services, because usually they haven't seen their parent in a longer time. Kids are
They
more
have
forgiving.
feeling.
There's
They have
strong,
lots of feelings.
yeah, stronger feelings, more independence, more,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but yes, yeah, they do supervision with teenagers too. A lot more resistance against it with teenagers. So,
Last question for you before I let you go. What are some things that you wish people would put into their court orders if they're agreeing to supervision, or things that you think we should be asking the judge to put in orders regarding supervision?
if there are restrictions on where the supervision can be held,
Mhm.
if there's no restrictions, they essentially have, through our policies, have the right to have it at a secured facility, a public location, or even their home or residence.
Mhm. And who decides if it's not specified?
The monitored parent, often in
Okay.
our intake, if there's a lot of concern from the non-monitored parent, we can sort of work between them, and we'll offer, like, we'll suggest, hey, after a couple of visits, the non-monitored parent often calms down. Their anxiety goes down. They see that things are okay. So we'll sometimes try in those situations to have them started, which the secured libraries we have are fantastic places anyway. So we'll try to sort of help them through that and do a few visits there. And then the non-monitored parent softens up a little bit and sees that it's okay, the child's doing okay. And then they can go off into the community or the home. We
Mhm.
always do a home inspection prior to allowing home visits too,
Mm,
make sure
mm,
it's safe and appropriate. And we have
mhm.
a report for that. Also, there's so many, really. If they would add the stipulation, I understand when times and dates are set, because, then it's like no working around it. The times and dates are always the same, and only so many monitors can accommodate the same time and date. So that's a really big challenge on our end. I have seen some orders setting times and dates or saying so many hours a week, agency availability.
Yeah.
That is really helpful, because if there's a non-monitored parent, a residential parent, not particularly excited about starting these services,
Right.
we can block services if we don't have time and availability from 10 to 2 on a
Right.
Saturday, which
Right.
90% of the orders state. So if they put that stipulation in there, it really helps us work them into getting that parenting time going and moving along quicker.
Yeah, it's so interesting because sometimes having specifics is very, very, very helpful, and sometimes having specifics can be a real impediment. And so it's really worth thinking through the language that's chosen and the stipulations that are there, and turning on the lawyer brain and just saying, well, what if, what if, what if, what if? What are all the things that can go wrong with this
What
language?
barrier?
Is
Yeah.
always a good exercise to go through when you're drafting your parenting plan. So for
Yeah.
anybody who's representing themselves, that's something to think about.
Yeah, locations are a big one too. Parents often, the monitored parent will choose a location, and the non-monitored parent will say, that's too far for me. I can't go to it. Well, they have 2 hours a week. You got to get them
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
We all want to be reasonable here, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like, it's not an easy, fun process for the
It's
non-monitored
not.
parent
It's
either.
bad
They're
for
like,
everybody,
I
right?
didn't do all this. Why am I jumping over hoops, right?
Right. Right.
And
I
there's
have
one
to be in
more.
charge 90% of the time. Why do I have to do all
Yeah,
the work? I
yeah,
get
not
it.
joking around for the so and then driving. If there's a concern with driving, we can add that and restrict driving, but typically if it's not restricted in the order, then the parent can drive and a lot of the non-monitored, parents have concerns about that. Well, if you do, get it in the order for us.
Mhm.
Drug and alcohol testing. If there's a huge concern and a parent has SoberLink, put in the order for them, request in the order for them to use it 10 minutes before the visit. That just takes all. We're not professionals in drug testing. We have policies and things around it and training, but we're not AverHealth. And if we have some cases where they do it and it just takes all questions out of it. They
Right.
use their SoberLink right before the visit. They
Right.
they breathalyze and good to go. No questions asked. No gray area. No shoot.
Awesome. Wonderful. Christy, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you being here on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for caring about learning more about our services and spreading the word.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too.
Thanks so much for listening to the Modern Arizona podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, make sure to download it, like it, leave a review, and share it with your friends. If you know someone who would be a good guest or you would like to be on the Modern Arizona podcast, make sure to give us an email or reach out to us at mymodernlaw.com.